SJ. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ Stongo, Gary 5 Jahojifikidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedgewitch. Welcome to a beautiful Wednesday morning here in downtown Okmulgee here on The Brew, 1240 The Brew, 1240 AM, 106.3 FM. And you can hear us online, by the way, for those who are interested in sharing our show with others. You can hear us online at 1240thebrew.com. All right, now let's get on with it. Today we've got several things we'll be doing, and we hope that we can send you into a wonderful holiday season. First of all, we'll be talking with Nelson Harjo about the latest Creek Nation election results. We have a new chief and some new council members, so we'll be discussing that briefly. In the second portion of our show, the folks from the Mvskoke Loan Fund are in the station this morning. We'll be talking about their tax help with that tax season coming up. There might be some people who are going to need some help, particularly our elders, and they will be there to help us out. Finally, we're going to wrap it up, I think, with a little bit of Christmas music in Mvskoke and by a Mvskoke artist. So we hope that that'll kind of set you up for the season. If you don't have any Christmas spirit, perhaps we can give you some there. But first of all, let's get on with our show. Good morning, Mr. Harjo. You with us there?
Yes, sir, Mr. Fife. How you doing this morning?
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess you and your crew are a little more relaxed now. We have an election vote that's been finalized. I mean, everybody's voted and made their choices, and you've got numbers and things to share. First of all, you guys tired? Are you glad that it's almost over?
Yes. We just have a few more days until the process can be finalized, and we can move on with a new administration and some new council representatives.
Well, that's always a major change. Kind of wondering, I think all departments are wondering, what do we do till then and what do we do afterwards? So I guess we're going to find out. Well, let's get on with it. We have some numbers for us there. Why don't you go ahead and start there?
Okay. Well, as you know, I want to go off with the results of the election, just so everybody knows who actually, made it out of the general election, who are actually, elect. So, for Principal Chief, it is David Hill. He is Chief-elect. For Creek seat, it's Joseph Hicks is elect. For Mvskoke seat A, it's Mary Crawford, elect. For Okmulgee seat A, it is William Lowe, elect. And for Tukabuchi seat A, it is Ann Marshall, elect. And for Wagner seat A, it is Charles McHenry, elect.
Now, if someone wants to take a look at these numbers and the percentages, where can they go?
Okay, so if somebody wants to look at these numbers, we have them posted in a few different places. We have those posted to our Facebook page, Mvskoke Creek Nation Election Office. We have those pasted onto the tribe's website and also on the different outlets through Mvskoke Media. Also, if you aren't social media savvy or have access to the internet, you can always call us and we can either mail those results to you or you can come by the office and pick up a copy for yourself.
And you can always find this program on its own website on YouTube, Mvskoke Radio, if you want to check these out. Okay, well, that's the folks that have been chosen by our citizens. Is this the end of it, so to speak? I know that earlier we had some glitches in the process, legal challenges and things like that kind of disrupted the proceedings. But with this vote, is it almost all over except for the cheering there?
Of course, I can't predict the future. We still have 2 more official days of the protest period where somebody could challenge, the results of this election. But I believe personally, on a personal level, that our citizens are ready to move forward. Now, whether a candidate might feel that way is, that's up for debate. I can't read minds or tell how they're feeling on the inside, but I would think that going through this process 3 times now, I think that was a little bit, that was enough for everybody, including myself.
Oh yeah, I know Mvskoke Media is glad that it's got to this stage. Our folks are getting
and we appreciate Mvskoke Media's help with the live streaming, the absentee count room, in order to reveal the process, so that way people could actually see what's taking place behind the scenes, so to speak. So that way people can see that it's it's a transparent process. We don't try to keep anything from anybody, and that showed just a really standard procedures that we follow while we're counting the absentee ballots. So we were really grateful for Mvskoke Media for helping us with that.
We'll take that compliment. I know that our crew worked pretty hard on that. Luckily, as the old guy, I didn't have to, but you never know. Now, in the last election, it was challenged, and there was discussion of some recounts and court suits and all kinds of stuff. Now, at this point, are there any possibilities of like a recount or any other challenges that are open to candidates?
Well, there's always a chance. There's always a chance of that being a real possibility. It all depends on if a particular candidate or candidates feel that they might. The outcome might change if they were to ask for a recount. But in the previous elections, especially in the September election, there was a couple of races that were within a very small margin. We're talking in the teens. So there could have been a possibility, that if all the ballots were recounted, that it could have been a different outcome. But the majority of the results from this past general election, from this past Saturday, are pretty definitive. I don't believe we would be off by those big margins, because we're looking at the closest race is within I believe it's like 40 votes. I believe it would be very hard for us to miscount 40 or by a margin of 40. So, like I said, once again, there's always a chance that somebody could, ask for a recount of these ballots and these votes. But the likelihood of it changing any outcomes, I think, is going to be very highly unlikely.
Looking at the list here, we're seeing the closest race was about 50 votes. Yeah, as you kind of nailed it there, and for Mvskoke, and the rest of them are fairly definitive. Now, in the last session we had, there was questions people had about absentee ballots and where those supposed to go and who's supposed to do what with them and who's not supposed to, and that sort of thing. Have all those questions been pretty well settled for this race?
Yes, the National Council actually introduced legislation and amended the Title 19 election codes to further solidify the process, so to speak, on the absentee ballot part on, who is, actually supposed to be responsible, the responsible party for actually filling out a ballot request or an absentee ballot and sending that back in, which we narrowed it down to the voter themselves, any legal care providers for the voter, any family members or anybody that resides within the same household would be the only people that would be authorized to actually handle a voter's absentee ballot outside of the voter itself. So that way there's no confusion or no loopholes that would allow somebody to come in and say, hey, I'll take your ballot off your hands and go mail it for you. So that way we can cut out, any conceived notions of wrongdoing or any of that stuff. It's a pretty straightforward process now that it's the voter's responsibility or that short list of people that would be authorized to handle a absentee voter's ballot.
Outside of that procedure, then, that should be a red flag to our citizens saying, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't do this.
Yes, exactly.
All right. When I voted on the 14th, I went by my polling place, and it was pretty quiet. And I just, out of curiosity, I asked them about how many people come in. They said, less than 100 for that, up to that point. Was that a good measure, shall we say, of voter turnout, or what kind of numbers do you have? And was it a big one, a little one?
Oh yeah, we once again broke records with this election. I believe before this year, the previous I think high mark for our election participation and turnout was 4,884, I believe. Well, we broke that record with the first primary back in September with a little over 5,000. I believe the number was 5,026 voters. So we broke that record. Well, this last election that we just went through this past weekend, we had over 5,200 voters that participated. So we broke another record.
Excuse me, I noticed on television there were some pretty concentrated campaigns to get the vote out. I think our PR people in your crew, did a great job in putting the word out. Do you think it made a difference this year?
Yes, I believe so. I believe any time that you can share as much information as possible with the citizens and voters, that it's always going to have an impact. And we are looking to keep that momentum going into the 2021 election, so that way we continue to increase our participation with each and every election. I know people get excited whenever it's time for a chief to be elected, but in my opinion, all elections are equally important because you're voting on elected officials. Sometimes there might be constitutional questions that might be placed on the ballot as well that affect our citizens and our nation as a whole. So it's always important whenever we have elections because no election should be taken lightly and no election should be overlooked. By either the candidates, us at the election office and board, or the voters themselves. We should treat every election as like it's a big event. Like it's the last election that we might ever have, but that's the way that we need to treat these things each and every year.
That's a scary thought. I remember when the Department of Interior determined who our leadership was, and the way citizens received it was just monumental, I thought, and now we're guiding our own destinies. Okay, as we look at the rest of the year, what happens next? We've got a vote in, we've got a count. It'll be made official on Friday. And what happens after that, or during that process, and then right after that?
Okay, so what's going to happen after Friday? If barring any protests or recounts, what will happen is all of the candidates elect will be official, and January 4th, I believe, is the planned date to have the inauguration for all the newly elected officials. That would include, the chief, second chief, and all of the elected officials for all of the national council seats.
Now, the last one was at the Dome. Any plans there? Take it back there?
No. I don't know, because we do not oversee the actual inauguration process and event. I think, and I haven't checked with the council or with the chiefs, but I believe they might want to show off the newly renovated National Council Mound Auditorium, so that way people can see all of the improvements and upgrades to that. But it depends too on the size and scale of the audience that they are planning on having. So I could easily see it happening at either location.
Right, and the last one I saw was pretty well attended, so we could be seeing the Dome again.
Yeah.
All right, now the job is done. The inauguration is somebody else's worry. What happens with your crew? Do you have any final sealing and stashing, archiving this material? What do you guys do?
Yeah, what we'll do after this is we will definitely archive all of the results and counts from not only this election, but also from the primary election. We'll make sure that that's locked up, so that way we keep those results for for forever. And but what we'll do with the actual materials that we use from this past election, we have to retain all materials for a period of up to 6 months. So we'll be having the ballots, the ballot boxes, any paperwork that goes along with that. That will be stored for 6 months. Then after that, we'll begin purging all of those excess materials. We'll probably hire a shredding company to come in, so that way we can begin destroying all of that, like the ballots and stuff like that, so there's no ballots just sitting around everywhere for people to get their hands on.
All kinds of crazy things could happen after that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mr. Harjo, thank you so much for filling us in this morning. I know you guys are busy, but it's the last light at the end of the tunnel for you, I hope. We wish you and your crew a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, and hope you get a chance now to go home and kick your boots off.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. And, yes, the same to you. Happy holidays, and hope everybody enjoys the Christmas and the New Year.
Okay. Nelson Harjo with the Election Board. We are going to take a short pause here, and then we'll be back with people from the Mvskoke Loan Fund. Tax season is here, and they're here to help our citizens and elders and the community deal with the taxes. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just because I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew, 1240 AM, 106.3 FM, and of course online at The Brew's website, 1240thebrew.com. Okay, we're going to switch over now to a subject that may not be as fun as other things in the holiday season, and that is upcoming tax season. Joining us now are Mr. Chris Coburn, who is the CEO of the Mvskoke Loan Fund, and Zach Harjo is a project coordinator. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming in and making time out of your schedule. We appreciate you all being here.
Thanks for having us.
Madame.
Okay, well, Chris, let me start with you for folks who may not be familiar with your department there. Give us a quick capsule of the Mvskoke Loan Fund.
Okay, well, Mvskoke Loan Fund is a community development financial institution. We are a nonprofit corporation under tribal law. We were started by a partnership of Mvskoke Creek Nation and U.S. Treasury. So we're growing as a financial entity to serve our people. And what that's what we do. We started with business lending. Now we're beginning consumer lending. Our goal is to eventually get into mortgages, and if future leadership wants this, we could morph into doing banks and other, becoming a full-blown financial institution. That just depends. So we're growing incrementally in how we help our people, and one of the things that we did 2 years ago, the tribe was approached, and we had the ability to begin a tax project called VITA, which is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. And then we also began a project called TCE, which is the same type of product and service doing taxes for mid to low income families. But TCE is focused on elders, so 60 or above. And so this year would be the third year of Loan Fund being in partnership with the nation to serve our citizens and Mvskoke area residents. It is a federal program, so non-natives are eligible. If they're in the local area, they can make an appointment. Given who we work with, the majority of our clients will be native, but it's open. But that's kind of who we are and what we're doing. So this year is kind of a good year. Loan Fund's growing a lot. Our loan volume's growing a lot. We never intended to start the tax project to be a Mvskoke Loan Fund project. It was more like we had the ability to start it, but it was always for the benefit of the nation. And so this year's a transition year. We're going to be shifting about half the responsibility and location back to the government, because it's really more of a government function of a service for our people than a banking function, which is our long-term goal.
Well, I'm sure that folks who use your service or have used it are appreciative of what you've been doing there, and it sounds like I'd qualify for everything you're doing there. Being over the age limit, and as most journalists, low income kind of thing. Yeah. Now, the target audience you've just described, is that how was that identified? Is that the group that needs the most help, you think?
Probably everyone needs the most help when you really think about taxes, because they're complicated, people are stressed. It's no one wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I want to think about taxes and what I owe, but we all have to. The actual guidelines are federally mandated. We get access to very expensive software and support from the IRS, and the requirement is we serve demographic groups based on certain limits they set. So their definition of mid to low income is a max household income, gross income of $54,000 or less. So whether we're talking about the VITA program, which is everybody under 60 that might have taxes, even high school students or college students that had a summer job, they can sometimes file taxes. They don't have to, but if they did, they can get some of their money back. Or the TCE program, with the tax counseling to the elderly, where it's 60 and above, where again they may not have active income, but they have other income, and they can again recover some taxable income and possibly get a refund. And so that's what they define it as. So that's what we're doing, and then we're kind of dividing the labor. This year, our location will change. Last 2 years, it's been at housing in the conference room right next to Mvskoke Loan Fund on the first floor. This year, it's shifting to the main campus of the tribe. And I want to introduce Zach in just a second and have him give that address. But basically, it's going to be at the Commerce Building in offices and the conference room there. That will be the new home location. And we're kind of dividing the labor. The regular program, the VITA, will be run by the nation's staff, and Zach will go through that. And then the tax counseling, the elderly, will be run still by Mvskoke Loan Fund, and hopefully we can recruit some college volunteers, because we have the ability to help them train on how to do taxes. But for the TCE project, we have up to 9 students that if they volunteer a certain amount of time, we can give them a tax season completion stipend. And I can also work with them if they're a college student and they need tax credit for volunteering. Maybe I can help them work with them on an internship.
I think I just heard a lot of ears pop up when you said stipend.
Yeah, so the stipend's not a lot of money. It's at the end. It's the way it's written in the grant. It's $250 completion. Mm-hmm. So we're laying out some guidelines, and we can talk to the students about the guidelines. But we need at least 9 student volunteers. They could be going to the tech school, like the VOTEC at Green Country, at OSU here in town, at our college in the Mvskoke Nation. They could be a regional student that might have some availability. Maybe they commute, they live in the area, but they go to NSU or somewhere else, East Central, wherever. But we need to find 9 students at least. We would prefer more than that. But
Well, why don't you go ahead and introduce Zach here, and let's grill him for a bit.
Okay, yeah, so Zachariah Harjo, he's a great help, and this is a partnership growing from where we're kind of handing this back to the government, working together. So he's over at the Secretary of the Nation in Commerce's office. So I'm going to pivot to him, and then maybe we can pivot back, and I can give you our outreach dates at the end.
Thank you, Chris. As you said, my name is Zachariah Harjo. I'm the Secretary of the Nation in the Commerce Office Project Coordinator. And we really took this project with the direction that it's a partnership with the nation. And it doesn't belong solely to any one programmatic function that we have. And so for the VITA TCE program moving forward, it will be housed out of the Commerce Department building, which anyone that's not aware of that location, the address is 1002 Bear Lane, Okmulgee 7447. And I myself, as well as some other staff members, will be posting some flyers and information about the VITA portion of the program, and then later TCE will be working with Chris's department at the Loan Fund to disseminate that information. But yeah, the theory moving forward is that we are one of the agencies that can stand to implement and offer this service. Taxes aren't fun for anyone, but as a government entity, the Mvskoke Creek Nation is able and should be able to have a really good tax program that everyone, not only our tribal citizens, but members of other tribes and members of the community that are non-tribal can definitely benefit from. So that's where we're trying to move the project moving forward. We see it as definitely as a partnership between, not just the Department of Commerce, but, working with the College of the Mvskoke Nation, working with other local institutions, as well as interdepartmentally within the nation. So we've been actively recruiting volunteers within the government, and we're now extending that to the general public, as well as particularly college students with the incentives that TCE offers. But the general program is by appointment only, and you will need to come for VITA to the Commerce Building, which is located, like I said, at the Tribal Complex. And that will be Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and there will be different time slots. But if you have any information, or if you're interested at all as for volunteering or as a client to come file your taxes in January, we'll be functional beginning January 13th. So you can reach out to our office at 918-549-2607 and get either more information on how to volunteer or how to become a client.
Let me ask you, are you deal with clients like yourself? I mean, they come in with their pile of paper and you help them wade through it?
The way the program is designed for us is by by appointment only. So unfortunately, we will inevitably see people that will walk in if they have relatives that have made an appointment. But the nature of it and how we'll have to run it will have to be by appointment. So you'll need to call in or have some contact with the office manager or the people in staff at Commerce, and they can go through all the paperwork that you'll need prior to your appointment setups. But all of that will be communicated between staff and the clients when they call in to inquire about information.
But do you personally, work with the folks who come in looking for help?
Yes. We will have an office. So Commerce staff, as well as myself personally, Zach Harjo, we'll be working day to day with everyone that comes in. So
Now, is this your first year at it?
This is my first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you who typically comes in the door looking for help. Can you answer that, or do you want to tackle that one, Chris?
Yeah, I probably should. So, and again, this is in tandem. So we're basically who comes in the door. It might be we get a fair amount of people that are college students or summer youth employees that are trying to get a refund back on their income. We get a fair amount of tribal employees that come in. We get a good amount of people that we get very few shoe boxes full of receipts, which is good. There are some types of tax returns that we are not set up to do, certain types of businesses, certain types of estates. It's more of a basic to moderate difficulty tax service. So when people call and they make an appointment, we do a screening, we talk about some of the things. There are certain types of taxes we can't do that we advise them they need to see a CPA. Mm. But for the most part, my team, this will be our third year. Some of the people on the team at Commerce have done it at least 2 years. So it won't be new to everyone, and the training is robust from the IRS, and we're offering that training over at Commerce, and Zach's kind of coordinating that, where people go through different testing that they can either do on site or online to learn what's required and learn how to use the software, which is called TaxSlayer Pro, and learn the steps to get certified to be able to do this. But from the client's perspective, it's very conversational, it's very relaxed. There's things that we can do and not do. The turnaround, it's electronic filing, so the turnaround from hello to doing taxes, if everything's complete, possibly 10 days, if they have a refund coming, it could come, it might be longer, everybody's unique. But those processes and paperwork, so the main thing people need to be prepared for is bring what you would normally bring when you do taxes. Receipts, think proof of income, Social Security cards for kids, things like that. And then we will work with them just like normal to get what they need to get done.
The situation of our citizens is entwined with federal government regulations and things like that. Is there perhaps something special that you could point out about being a Mvskoke Creek person, land leasing income or oil royalties, which I'm assuming a lot of, not a lot, but a few do.
And the oil royalties don't really complicate it too much. It's just you have to have proof. You treat different types of retirement differently by tax law. So if someone's a federal employee, it's treated one way, everyone else is treated differently, and that's in the tax law. But our software sees that, and we've learned that over the years. We've learned some tweaks on how to handle certain types of paperwork and what we can and can't do and what makes sense and not, and then when to refer to someone that's more difficult. But general mineral rights and things like that, it's not really a big deal. They just need to bring their documents.
And normally an oil company would send you the appropriate material.
Correct. A lot of times it gets a little wonky in the sense of, and wonky's probably not a technical term, but
works for me.
A lot of families might have fractional interests in something.
Yes,
so you might have 5 or 6 sets of cousins, so 15 people. I saw one oil lease where it's like 1/15 and all these other names, and I was just like, you have to kind of do your math. But it's not usually that crazy. It's usually just a couple of siblings or something where they have different documents, but someone should have the documents, and we can figure out what applies to who.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say the beauty of the tribe being able to offer this type of program too is the cultural awareness that we have, the ability that maybe there are things that we've had to add to it in terms of tribal citizens having different sources of revenue than standard citizens. It's like, but we have the awareness as the tribe that these are our citizens and these are their realities and these are the implications that have been in place, since we've been founded as a government. So we have that previous knowledge, and using that intellect, we're able to inform some of the federal policies, even what is a best practice when you're out in Indian country versus when you're out in a urban area that is non-Indian.
Well, let me follow up on that. That's an intriguing area there. Now, cultural sensitivity is really important. Does your program make prepare itself for that sort of thing, like perhaps somebody's auntie or uncle and their taxes, but they themselves perhaps aren't quite as fluent in English and the legal terms you're dealing with there?
Yeah, I think,
and may be kind of shy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the role of the volunteers is definitely to provide that kind of community bridge network. And so we've expanded our recruitment efforts. I know the Loan Fund in years past have worked with different age groups, particularly elders, as volunteers and recruiters to make their peers, as well as anyone that might reference them in their lifetime, comfortable and be in that situation. Like I said, taxes aren't fun for anyone, and having demonstrate that we have people there that are just like them, that share the same cultural background, share the same place of living. Those realities, you bring them into the program, and I think it makes it much more easy. And as far as the cultural sensitivity training, it's guided by the federal mandates, which are pretty broad and very protective of most groups. And so every volunteer is certified up to that standard. However, like I said, as a tribe, we're able to be aware of additional things outside of that. And for us, for sure, there is that cultural sensitivity and awareness that we're going to have elders that, or people, citizens that aren't used to the standard of taxation and all of the ins and outs of that.
Chris?
If I can just kind of jump in there. So the main thing is we're trying to set people at ease working with certain required outcomes. So certain documents are what they are. We can't get around that, but we want to make people as comfortable as possible. And so if there are questions, we have the mechanism and the people and the attitude of we're helping ourselves. It's family helping family, more or less. And so we're going to find the expertise or the right answer, or we're going to say we don't have the right answer, where you need to get a different resource. But it's just these two programs make so much more sense to be run by the tribe as a whole, and drawing from that many more partners and that many more people with different personalities, different backgrounds, different skill sets. And so the more volunteers, the more diversity of our volunteers, the more experience of our volunteers, the more comfortable we can make our clients, and possibly have more options to pair them with the best person to do what they do.
The possibilities of someone coming in with something you can't handle, I don't know how strong those are, but you've mentioned it a couple times. What are your limits there? What is it where you can't do anything with them, or perhaps you might want to refer them to a CPA?
Certain types of complex businesses where an individual owns a company and they're wanting us to file company taxes, not just individual taxes. If it's what's called a sub-S, it's a company that a person owns and they're filing it on their own taxes. That's going to require 2 skill sets above our normal preparer. And so that's one to where our appointment times and whatever we need to know so we can pair them with someone that has advanced skill set training and certification. There are situations, we had some ministers that wanted us to do a certain type of filing and certain type of taxes. where there's certain laws on, housing allowances and things like that deal with clergy. That's specialized stuff. That's not your average tax return. That needs to be a CPA. So I can't be super specific, but that's two examples. What I'm saying is moderate to basic is somebody has a couple of W-2s if they're still working. Maybe they got a 1099 from something, whether that they went to the gaming, won something, or they got a 1099 they drew from retirement. The normal documents you have for income that you get and should get by February 1st, and the normal documents you have for things that are allowable to write off, like medical expenses, things of that nature, and your normal identity documents, so security cards for everyone that's going to be on that return, ID for everyone that's going to be on that return. Those kind of things we need, and that and meeting the person will paint the picture of where we go next.
Yeah, I would, to add to that, the requirements are, like I said, they're set forth by the federal agency. They're the restrictive portions of it, like making $54,000 or less. And so a lot of people will not see themselves as fit to under those guidelines, particularly like elders for the TCE portion of it. They may not have an active income except for Social Security, but for those purposes, it might be beneficial for them to come and get some tax counseling, and they might get money back, or there might be a sufficient reason for them to file, whereas otherwise they may not see fit. So
state credits. Most all elders can get a small credit even from doing their taxes, and the fact that we're doing this at no fee. So we're saving them $75 to $300 to see someone else to do taxes, but they're getting the same kind of output. There's really no harm, There's some refundable credits for elders in Oklahoma, regardless, but they have to file taxes to get them.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. Something that intrigues me. You mentioned, gambling, gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Gaming being the hot topic in the state right now, the compacts and everything. But what obligations is a person under if you go to the casino and hit the big one, make a nice choice, and all of a sudden you're seeing this pile of chips in front of you?
I prefer to be more conservative, and the guidelines are already built into the software.
Mm-hmm.
If you won something and got a tax document, bring it. Okay. If you earned something, report it. Sometimes we get kind of hit with, what do I have to? What can I get away with not saying? Kind of the cash society thing. The simplest thing is we're dealing with our tribe. We're dealing with situations that are legal and integrity based. Bring in the documents from whatever you earned, and then obviously the way the scales are, people that have bigger jackpots are going to have a bigger responsibility. But they need to bring in if they won something. But also they can deduct some of their losses, and they can get a statement from that as well. So it's pretty simple, but the trend is if they won more, they're going to be taxed more.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you're not a law enforcement agency, but are there times when you see something there that doesn't smell right?
We're required by the integrity standards that Chris mentioned. We're required to, in good faith, submit tax returns that are wholly comprehensive of what we see as fit to be submitted. And that requires us to operate ethically. And so if there is a situation where, in theory, we were to suspect that a client was withholding information intentionally to change the tax return and going up the chain of command, we would then have to look into it and say, is this something that
refuse it?
Yeah, is this something that we can put forward in it ethically and in good faith? And a lot of times the answer is no, unfortunately.
Yeah. So last year and the years before, I basically had to kick back about 3 or 4 people and say, no, I can't help you. What you're asking me to do, maybe somebody else will do it for you, but it doesn't meet the guidelines. I'm sorry, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my roles that I agreed to the federal government for, and this will probably be my last role having this title, but as site coordinator of the projects, is saying that as best of our knowledge, our team followed the rules, what we see, and ultimately when the client signs the tax return, they are signing a legal document swearing what is there is the truth. So ultimately the responsibility is on the person that could get in trouble with the federal government. So we try to counsel people to be as forthright and honest as they can, and then do what they need to do. If people are being questionable, that usually comes out in the meeting that, hey, I'm trying to, do something else. And we will advise them on what is what is there. And so the general maxims are, if you made money, report it. If you paid taxes or had losses, report it, because it may offset. But just disclose what you have. I would advise some people, there's a big rush in the first of tax season, first 6-8 weeks, because the people that think they're getting a refund want to rush in and get that refund. And then the last half of the tax season, the last 4 or 5 weeks, is people that know they owe. And so it's really like 2 sets of seasons. But people don't want to come in too early, because invariably someone files and then they get another document 10 days later. Okay, and
Whoops.
And once it's filed and accepted by the federal government, we as a local site can't do anything. They're going to have to go and do an amended return, and they will have to pay someone else for that expense and things like that. So they want to make sure they have all their documents together. So if they've done a taxable event, like borrowed from a retirement or worked multiple jobs, and they know they're going to need multiple W-2s, get all this stuff together and then come in.
When you say get all the stuff together, let's take a moment here and kind of go over that. So if somebody comes in and said, here's a pile of paper, can you guys make it into a tax return? So what documents are people required to bring?
So proof of income, proof of identity. So proof of income could be W-2s, it could be 1099s if they're self-employed. It could be 1099 is a very broad term with lots of letters, I think A through R, of different things. So retirement could be a draw from a retirement. It could be a gaming winning. It could be an investment or an interest statement from a bank. So really just W-2s, 1099s, other sources of income that they've had on the income side. It could be SSA forms, Social Security forms, and then on the expense side, that could be things that would be allowable for deductions if we're looking at do we go a standard return or do we go an itemized return? It might be medical expenses, it might be other expenses. There's small things like relocation for a job, different things that tax law allows. For most people, and what I saw even from the first year to last year, most people are going to, under 54,000 are going to be the standard deduction, so it's going to be a lot less paperwork. It's who are you, document that, ID-wise, Social Security-wise, what did you make, what came in, what went out, and it's a simpler process. That's the standard deduction, and the standard deduction was increased, which lowered the amount from year 1 to year 2 of itemized deductions.
This next question may sound a bit ridiculous, but I just kind of was there. I guess who is obligated to pay taxes now? The reason I ask is on occasion, extremely rare occasion, you run into somebody who declares, I am a sovereign citizen, therefore I don't owe nobody nothing, and I don't have to follow your rules because I make up my own.
Okay.
I mean, does that ever happen? I mean, what do you do with it?
It does, and I mean, again, ultimately the responsibility to file taxes or not is up to the taxpayer or the citizen. All citizens, in effect, are taxpayers if they're a citizen of the United States. There are some caveats on some income that's tax immune. Certain types of disability income, things of that nature. We have had, because we predominantly deal with Native American tribal members, hey, I live on restricted land, I work for a nation, my property is this type. There's a very small window in Oklahoma tax code, not federal tax code, where some tax could be shielded. But if people don't meet all three tests, they're going to be taxable, and they need to be cautious. So we will walk people through that very small window and see if it fits. But that would only apply to Oklahoma taxes. That would not apply to federal taxes. And again, our software helps us figure all that out.
Generally speaking, though, there is no such thing as people not paying taxes. I mean, we're dual citizens, both of our tribal governments as well as the United States. And given that it's been interpreted that we are citizens like everyone else and we pay taxes, and under those extremely unique circumstances where a tribal citizen might be shielded from paying federal income taxes, we would largely be aware of those instances where they're unique and where they're outlined, because 99% of the time that isn't the case, and 99% of the time every other tribal citizen is also, like I said, a citizen of the United States, and their income is due with the responsibilities of every other citizen with income tax and all of that.
So pretty much everyone is obligated to pay their taxes, and there really aren't any special circumstances where someone would be exempt from.
There could be, but they're limited, and
extremely limited.
Extremely, and here's the deal with us doing this service, and they're not having any. They're saving $75 to $300 depending on how complex the taxes are. We could go through the whole process and see where they're at, and then before they sign, and then they decide they don't want to do it, they don't have to file. So the process of preparing taxes is getting everything ready to go and doing it. And we do the e-file, we do everything else to make it simple. But the simplest thing and the most appropriate thing for each person to do for them in their household is bring in somewhere, whether it's us or somewhere else, all their documents and see do they owe or do they not. Or do they have a refund or not. Just do the process, because that's, then they can know what the results are, and then they can go ahead and file. We have had a few people, a handful, that didn't like the outcome and said, no, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Let us know within a certain window, and we'll void this in their software. And maybe they got a better result, or maybe they didn't file. I don't know. But for us, the appointments, we go through the process with them, and we try to make it. But in general, like as Zach was laying out, I mean, very few exceptions. People are going to, people have taxable income unless it's certain types. It doesn't hurt anyone to go through the process and see where they're at, and it saves them money. If we can do a little review, the first year we did a few hundred returns and about a $300,000 positive impact, and that was for the 2017 taxes and 2018. Last year our impact was over 400,000, and we did a few hundred returns more. So this project is helping our citizens and our communities realize this year it might be about a $500,000 impact, and that's fees they saved and refunds that went back to the families and back to the communities and helping everybody.
Okay, well, I tell you what, we need to wrap this up. If someone has any questions or wants to make an appointment to use the service,
they would call Commerce this year instead of Mvskoke Loan Fund. And Zach, if you'd give that number again.
Yeah, our number at Commerce is 918-732-2767. Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to thank Chris Coburn and Zach Harjo for coming in and dealing with a subject that ain't particularly great during this holiday season. But I tell you what, we'll change that up for a little bit and share a little bit of music with you from some of it from Mvskoke Creek citizens, and some of it in Mvskoke, some not.
hogibi, Hilodi, Jalikskana, Dinky, Big Bofatskis, Jump Chagati, Jump Chagati, Jump Hogibi, Hilodi, Jalikskana, Dinky, Big Bofatskis. Afatskagis, Isayija, Mikonaga Samang, Sifikam Giraka Sama, Oh Magad Yahega, Oh Magad Yahega, Oh Magad, Oh Magad Yahega. Ikan bayat, ikan omi, mihin manito si, ikaw ang pagsida, agasangka, sinhonich kagi, sinhonich kagi, sinhonich kagi, ano kitska. Kisti hovilgana wikan imabo heitzagin sinom hitatidakakis awid gihijagis awid gihijagis sinom hitatidakakis awid gihijagis mikag iyarin long hidat in hawi motames is atakes hobo.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Midot.
I guess you kinda scared yourself